you on hookup apps? Are you Netflix and chilling? What if the person you just had sex with isn't really who they say they are? They use hashtag no filter but filtered every picture, lied about their age, and are really underage. Or their recollection of what you just did is totally different from what you remember. It was in the news recently where a 19-year-old college student met a girl on a hookup site. She told him she was 17, they wound up having sex, and later found out she was really only 14. He was jailed for 90 days and almost got on the sex offenders list for the rest of his life. And Edwin, our guest today, at 22, met a girl through a friend. They clicked, went out, had a blast, ended up having sex in his car, and the next day, the nightmare began. Okay, Edwin, so tell us, when did you move to the United States?
I moved here 2000.
How old were you when you moved here?
I was 12.
And so you went to school here, high school, everything.
Yeah.
So you also understand, so because you moved here at a young age, you understand how the laws work here. No means no. So what was the fateful night that you went out? Do you remember that exact day? When was it?
I think it was Wednesday night.
Okay.
It was ladies' night.
It was ladies' night?
Yes.
In Florida? Where in Florida was it? Miami?
Boca Raton.
Boca Raton.
Yes.
And how had you met the girl?
I had a friend, and then she told me she was going to bring her friend. So I told her I would pick them up at the house, and I guess they were neighbors.
So you hang out. How late were you guys out?
We were out until probably 1 o'clock.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then did you guys then go home together, or
Yeah,
all three of you?
No, my friend Daniela, she went with somebody else that night.
Okay.
So I drove her home.
You took her home. She said she wants to go home. She wants to go home to her house or home to your house?
To her house. She told me, oh, I like somebody. So I'm like, okay, that's cool, you like somebody. So I was hanging out with my friends and everything, and she came to me, and then after she said to me, oh, I like a guy. I said, okay, that's cool, you like a guy. She came to me and she's like, oh, before the end of the night, she told me, oh, that guy that I told you that I like is you. So, okay, I said, all right. So we started dancing. We were dancing, and then we had a good time together. And then, it was time to go home. And I told her, you want to go home? She said, yeah. So we went home. While in the way home, I put the car to the side. And then that's when we start, kissing and
Getting hot and heavy.
And we got hot and heavy. And you want to hear details?
No, but just but whatever we can put out there. And then
she had her clothes on. Then we start doing it, and she was doing it to me.
Okay.
I wasn't even doing it to her. She was doing it herself.
In the car?
In the car.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So you had sex in the car?
We had sex in the car.
Okay. And then after that, you dropped her off at home, or?
And after that, we went through the gate because she lived in a complex.
Okay.
So we went to the gate, and there was a security guard, and then the security looked at me, and then, where you going? I said, I'm dropping her off. She said her name. Then I guess they called into to the house. We went inside, and I dropped her home. And before I leave, I gave her a kiss goodbye. And then, in the process, she gave me her phone number. We exchanged numbers, obviously. And then that's about it.
And then you went home, went to sleep, and then
I went to work, regular basis. And police officer came on my job to interview me. He went to me and he said, I would like to ask you some questions from last night. I said, okay, not a problem. We went to his car, and he came to me. He said, okay, when you dropped her home last night, did she had a black eyes? Because she's saying she had a black eyes. So the police asking me, she had a black eyes. What's going on with her black eyes? I told her, I had no clue, sir. I took her home, I gave the kiss goodbye, and she didn't have no black eyes. But he never said to me, "Oh, I mean, this chick she's putting charges on you." She's saying that I mean, he wasn't that honest to me. That when I realized that things changed. Things changed when I called her, and she never picked up her phone. And then when she finally picked up her phone, she was crying. She's saying, "Oh, what you did to me?" I got kind of mad, and I said, "What are you talking about? What do you mean what I did to you?" I told her, "I've been trying to reach you, and then you don't answer your phone calls." She's like, I don't know what you did to me last night." I say, "What do you mean you don't know what I did to last night?" And then I hang up the phone. I guess the police was recording everything. I mean, the case was going on already.
And you had no idea that?
I had no idea that was going on.
When were you arrested?
After a year, when the incident supposedly took place.
When the policeman came to work and asked you about the black eye, did they ask you about the sex at the time?
They never told me about the sex in the time, no.
Never did. Okay, so we're going to be joined by your attorneys. That's Carlos Lietes.
Yes, thank you.
And Matt Ladd. They're Florida criminal attorneys. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Help us understand and put this into context. So he goes out with a girl. They have a good time. They get hot and heavy. He gets asked about the black eye only, not about if they had any sexual activity, and then gets arrested a year later. What exactly happened in this case?
Boca Raton detectives have to investigate the allegations, and so that's what they did. They
Right.
did several controlled calls to different witnesses that night. One of which was a controlled call shortly after she makes this allegation to her friend, the one that introduced the three of them together. So when the accuser called Daniela, the friend that introduced them, and said, "Can you tell me what happened last night? I don't remember." Daniela tells her exactly what she remembers. "You called me about whatever time it was, 2 in the morning or whenever it was, and said, yeah, you called me, said you got home, and, love you, good night, we'll talk in the morning." And so the detective had that in a recording. Of course, it was provided to us as part of the investigation that the officer had done. But interestingly, the detective never transcribed it, never translated it into English for the prosecutors that didn't speak Spanish, and never put it in any police reports or summaries. So that what we believed was very important information in Edwin's favor. This girl didn't call her friend and say, "Who is this guy? He just raped me. I need help.
She
Call the
wasn't
police."
distraught.
She wasn't distraught at
Okay.
all. And that was, I think, one of the compelling facts that really turned the case in Edwin's favor, because the detective, in this time that he's compiling what to do, does he make an arrest? Does he believe the accuser or not?
But why did they wait? What was there a lag for a year? I mean, the cop came to his place of work the day after. Why was he arrested a year later?
I think it might have been they wanted to wait for the DNA to come back in from the condom that they were able to recover that matched it to Edwin. I think that's what took so long. But again, a year's a pretty outrageous time. But they have within the statute of limitations to bring the charges. So they can take as long as they want to, so long as it's within the statute.
So they've gone out, they had a good time, they were drinking, I'd imagine. Can someone consent when they're drunk or high, legally?
Well, I guess it's what level are you drunk or high? There comes a point where you can't consent anymore. The question is, are you at that level? Are you still functioning to where you can make decisions at whether or not you can have sex? It's different if you have, 5 drinks, maybe someone's 15 drinks where you can't consent anymore. I mean, generally, if you're functioning, if you're walking, you're talking, and you look like you can make decisions, then you can consent. Obviously, that's kind of a very, subjective standard. It goes from person to person.
Okay, so this is interesting because they had an experience together, and then somebody's recollection of the entire experience is totally different from somebody else's. And that happens all the time, even in today's world where we have apps, where people are meeting on the apps and they're lying about their age, and they show up and it's something totally different. So how do you then get out of that? I mean, if somebody lies to you or then says, "Oh, I was drunk," or "I was coerced into it," where's the isn't there a gray line there?
There's a very gray line there, and that's why it's very dangerous. I mean, if we're talking about someone who's underage, then there's not a lot you can do. It's a strict liability offense. I mean, if they're underage, they're underage. It doesn't matter what they told you. It doesn't matter what your belief was. If that person is not of the age of consent and you had sex with them, well, you've got a huge problem now.
How old were you, Edwin, when this happened?
I was 23, very much.
21, I think, 22.
21, 22, and how old was the girl?
She was 18.
So
she
she
was
was
18.
of legal age.
Yeah, she was.
So okay. And so recently in the news, there was a kid who's 19, a college kid, who went on some dating app, met a girl, they had sex. Turned out the girl was 14 years old.
Wow.
He actually did, I guess, from what I read, he has spent 90 days in jail and was going to be on a sex offenders list for the rest of his life. But I think he just recently, that happened. I mean, now, I understand why the laws are there, to protect the kids from, predators, so to speak. But when the kid is lying and taking advantage of the law, maybe she didn't know she was doing it, but taking advantage of the law that's there to protect her, to put somebody else's life in jeopardy. How are you able to get out of that? Are you able to get out of that at all?
No.
It's the problem is, when the laws were created by the legislature, they didn't really think of the collateral consequences of, what if someone is lying? What if someone in complete good faith thinks they're having sex with someone who's an adult and they're not? And you have all these people that get pulled in, as a byproduct of them trying to protect minors from, predators, like you're saying. So it's a very, very tough situation. Just your belief or that they lied to you, that's not going to get you off. It's strict liability.
In that case that you're talking about, the victim even came forward to the police and to the judge and to the court saying, we don't want this to happen. We don't want him to be prosecuted like that. So it definitely becomes an issue of prosecutorial discretion or not.
Where did the black eye come from? Did anybody ever decide where she got the black eye?
I never knew, because when I trapped her home, she was fine.
And in court, what was the explanation?
But from people that people knew she had problems, and they told me afterwards. I find that out, and they were saying that she did it herself.
The best we could conclude, and what we raised to the jury, and it seems that the jury believed us, is that she did give it to herself. We were able to bring in a witness of someone that used to work with her that had seen her scratching herself and cutting herself to a severe degree. That self-mutilation is basically what we explained to the jury is she has a history of harming herself. Who knows whether it's depression, bipolar disorder, some sort of personality disorder. Truthfully, it was for the state to say that it wasn't. They have the burden of proving that she's a sane person telling the truth. And when we raise these issues describing her psychological mental health state could be in question, it made a big difference for Edwin. There is no other explanation as to how she got it. She could have fallen out of bed for all we knew.
Was there any psychological evaluation done for both Edwin and the girl?
Didn't we try a lie detector that I have?
Yeah.
That I did.
We also asked for, Edwin took a lie detector and passed.
Okay.
I mean, there was no question in our minds that he did not rape her. It was 100% consensual. Well, she's got a black eye, let's let a jury to decide.
Exactly, because a guy's gonna hit a girl. Chances are most of the girls are not gonna hit the guy because the guy's bigger and stronger, and So maybe they'll go the other way around, and we just come about and tell a story and use the law to work to their advantage to really put somebody down.
I'll say that as much effort as put into making the system fair, it is definitely not perfect. And no one would ever say that it is. I mean, and that's what we're left with. I mean, certainly if someone has a valid accusation of rape, sexual battery,
Absolutely.
the process needs to be in to investigate it.
Absolutely.
And you hope that the investigators are people of good judgment, of good ability, of excellent ability to be able to discern what's true and what's not true. And I think that all those factors really impacted Edwin, and there was one breath away from the jury coming back and saying guilty instead of not guilty. And that's really the fear that you have. Anybody is subject to this type of thing. Anybody who, even people that they sleep with and they know well, are subject to an accuser coming back and saying, I'm not so sure that it was consensual way back when.
Evidence, nothing, because there was sex. They're going to find physical evidence of sex. It's just those words. Was it consensual or was it not?
What is the one piece of advice you could give people out there? Because young and old who today are meeting up and having sex a lot more, I think, with strangers than we did many years ago, just because technology has changed everything. You can meet somebody on an app and know how far they are from you.
Right.
What is the one piece of advice that you think we could give people out there that would hopefully not put them in this kind of predicament?
I mean, I would say just be careful. Know who you're with. Get to know them. Short of that, make sure there's other people around when you meet them, when you interact with them, because you at least want to have someone that's able to testify, say, hey, they were getting on just fine. They were,
Right.
They were getting along. She was all over him. He was all over her. They were kissing, and it appeared consensual when I saw it. I don't know what happened later, but at least you have that much that someone can say to it. Because if
And
not, there's nothing.
the history of conversation that somebody may have had on the phone, whether it's text messages or whatever, does that come in handy at all or no?
Absolutely. I mean, Facebook Messenger, it preserves, everyone's using that, Facebook Messenger or text messaging.
Right.
Between the two, almost more than they talk to each other on the phone. And so that helps preserve, if they had slept together on a Friday night and there's texts on Saturday morning about let's go get breakfast, and then you find out, a month later that she's claiming it wasn't consensual. Well, heck yes, those text messages and messages are going to be really important to show it absolutely was consensual. So now you need the professionals, the detectives, and the prosecutors and the people in charge of investigating the accuser's allegation to really have sound mind and discretion, good, strong abilities to be able to discern what's true and what might be the product of some sort of mental health issue.
How long did this whole entire case take?
I feel like we've prepared the trial for over a year.
Yeah, I think it was probably around a year from the time he was arrested to the time it actually went to trial and got in front of the jury.
What kind of time was he facing?
It's a second-degree felony, so I think he was facing a maximum of 15 years. I don't think there were any other charges. Did they charge the battery as well? No, it was just one charge, 15 years maximum.
And register as a sex offender.
Of
for the
course.
rest of his
And
life.
registered, which changes the rest of his life.
They offered
Yeah.
5 years state prison, of course, registering as a sex offender, as a plea bargain. And that's an offer you have to take seriously, because Edwin, you're looking at 15 years for the rest of your life in a prison, or 5 years, you're young, you'll be out before you're 30, you've still got the rest of your life to salvage. You got to consider that. Much less prison and or jail time instead of prison time, and probation. It's a guarantee you're going to have the rest of your life salvaged. Otherwise, you're looking at 15 years on a jury coming back and saying, look, she's got a black eye. It's unexplainable. We find you guilty. And, when you're weighing those two things, a lot of people go for the guarantee, which is the probation or plea offer.
I mean, it's scary. What if the offer would have been 1
Scary.
year or 6 months or just straight probation or house arrest? How do you not take that and take that risk going to trial and possibly going to prison? It's tough. Most people won't do it. It's very, very hard to have the courage to go in front of that jury. But now you've taken the probation and now you're a sex offender and your life is done.
And that's why, the tale or the lesson from this experience that, that I tell clients all the time, and when we've actually spoken about this case a lot to different universities even, you've got to know who you're sleeping with. You have to know them well. The one night fling, if you don't know who she is, even if she's coming through friends, you just don't know. You
Because
have-
right now the
do
colleges
it.
are having a big movement about consent, teaching kids about consent. That no means no. How was he what was his demeanor through the entire experience?
He never had a doubt he was going to win. It's the craziest thing. I've done many a trial. I've never had a client who just unflappable. He had no doubts that he was going to win. We were obviously concerned because this is, obviously it's our responsibility if it goes south, and we take that very seriously. He was like, no, we're good. We got this the whole time. And, Matt and I were like, well, let's make sure we have this. Even when it went to the jury, we were concerned. I mean, we felt we did a good job. We put forth a great case.
But there's still that chance.
You never know what a jury of 6 people is going to do. I mean, it's almost scarier for us because it's on us whether he wins or loses. It's not on him. He didn't do the work.
representing guilty people is a lot easier,
Way
It
easier. I'll
really
take guilty
is.
people all day.
Yeah, when you have someone that's innocent and you have a lie detector that substantiates he's innocent, I mean,
You can't lose those.
You can't lose.
You can't screw those up. They're just the way it is.
And how do you deal with the consequences now that you know that if somebody Googles you, you have a mugshot that comes up and you have a police record?
See myself in a picture. I never thought this was gonna happen to me. I never thought I was in a situation that I would be in the internet and in the news. But I mean, right now, I see it and because I know what I went through, and then I knew that God gave me the strength to prove my innocence. I don't really see it that way now.
Does it hinder you in terms of getting jobs?
No, I don't have no
Has that
problem.
come up?
I never had a problem.
Why did you want to tell your story now? Why do you think it was okay for you to tell your story now?
I always try to say the story to how people are there that they may be confused. You know, they just go with their emotions. You know, but sometimes you have to let your emotions to the side. I want to tell people out there just to really be careful. Meet the chick first. You know,
The girl.
the girl, the girl, yeah, the
Oh,
girl.
the person you're sleeping.
I mean, the person you're sleeping, yeah, the
Right.
person you're sleeping with, because I mean, it can change your whole life. And when I get the chance, I advise other guys to know the person well, to not sleep with anybody until like you know them. Give it a couple of. I would suggest just to take a month,
To know somebody.
buy her to dinner, get to know their families, get to know who she is before you even go to that step. That's my advice to.
Your lesson learned.
Oh, my lesson learned. Yeah, I mean, I mean, I'm currently married. Yeah, I don't have to deal with that. I mean, right now, but yeah, my lesson. I wouldn't date anybody and just try to take it home the first night.
And the reason we wanted to do this story was because of college kids out there, young kids out there, young and old, who we're in a society today with a lot of, it's a hookup society, where people are meeting and sleeping around with people. And whether you like it or not is one thing, but it's happening. And, you know, someone could do something and end up and change the rest of it, and destroy the rest of
Yeah.
their lives. And so that's why I wanted to tell you a story, because maybe it's a cautionary tale for the kids that are out there. So thank you so much for coming. Edwin Barrera, Carlos Vietas, and Matt Loud.
Thank you.
Thanks guys. Thank
for
you.
having us.
Thanks. Pause and recognize. We are in a new era of adolescence technology. With limitless access to information, kids are engaging in sexual activities earlier than ever before. And one simple mistake could change the trajectory of their lives and end up in jail or on a sexual offenders list for the rest of their lives. Take time to know the person. And for the record, not now, maybe later, I'll think about it, and I'm not sure, all mean no. Stop. And you do not need an explanation. No is no.